awkwardness of the timing with only 3 games left and then the playoffs looming. But, it came down to 2 factors. One, I have a complete belief and trust in our group of players that are in there. And I have complete trust and belief in our assistant coaches and their ability to step up into different roles. And maybe if their voices are a little louder in certain areas, maybe they can squeeze some of that juice that I've been talking about. We went on an 8-game win streak right before the All-Star break. But since then, I think we're 11-13. We've lost our last 4, and we're trending towards a direction that I thought would probably be a very near end to our season in the near future. We'll be going through a full search when the time comes, and I look forward to that process when the time comes, but hopefully it doesn't come for a very long time because, again, I do believe there's more in that group, and we're not done with this season just yet.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
All right, simple question. Is it wrong for me to talk over the lovely tones of Michael McDonald? I kind of feel like it is. What's going on? Rip City Drive, Chad Dewing here. I got my workout in today. And fortunately, my right hand, where that chunk was taken out of my callus after that wicked fall I took on Sunday, it did not prevent me from getting a good workout in. My buddy Luke is coming off his Spartan race this past weekend down in San Jose. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. And I'm feeling good for a variety of different reasons. One, I had a great workout. And I've told you before that peak Chad, you don't get peak Chad very often, but usually right around 3 o'clock on Wednesdays you do. And I just ride the high until it's over. I love working out. I am totally locked in and dialed in on my nutrition right now. And I checked in at 161.6 this morning after the 2-stage pee that I took. I got on the scale, and I was like, oh, I got to pee again. And I took care of that, and I got back on the scale. It was down to 161.6. So I'm making progress based on what I'm trying to accomplish there. And I'm most excited about the fact that next week is the official opening of my personal golf season and my quest to hit 100 rounds over the course of the next 6 months. That's really all I care about. I got 95 rounds in last year, and I feel like that was a good effort, but I feel like I can squeeze a little bit more juice out of the orange there. So I'm going to focus on that and looking forward to getting outdoors. And I think the weather for all of us is going to be pretty good next week. So this is my favorite time of the year. The days, as you might have noticed, are getting longer. The weather is going to get better, and that means we have more time to be outdoors and doing proper activities, which is nice. So I'm feeling pretty good. I was sore yesterday. It's amazing. I forgot what Luke called it. There's some type of word for it. But when you go through an experience like that, your entire body clenches or contracts in a way that is not normal. And so I didn't feel as sore on Monday coming off the fall that I did yesterday. And I went in and did some golf practice last night. But, man, I just wasn't feeling it. So I was just like, forget this. I'm out. And I'll return back tomorrow. But we got the Blazer game coming up tonight, final road game of the year. And then they finish out at home on Friday and Sunday against the Warriors and Lakers. A couple of delicious basketball games that should have some meaning in the Western Conference for the Blazers to close out the season. And although Portland will not be in the mix for the play-in tournament, the part that's cool is that they've already secured a winning record at home for the first time since 2021. And let's face it, if they can play the role of spoiler for the Warriors or Lakers, who are all locked into that battle in the Western Conference, I'm all for it. And if you look at the West right now, the standings are wicked. Wicked standings in the Western Conference. Unless you're Oklahoma City or Houston. They've been the 2 best teams in the conference throughout the entire year. Oklahoma City sitting with a record of 65-14. That's insanity. Houston at 52-27. Those are the only 2 teams in the West right now with 50 or more wins. The Lakers right now are in third at 48-31. And then right behind them with the identical records, 4 through 6, Clippers, the Nuggets, and the Warriors. And Minnesota, the same record, who is currently in Memphis at 47-32. And Minnesota would be with the same record as well if they hadn't melted down last night and blown another game late, this time to the Milwaukee Bucks. But this is going to be fascinating over the next few days to see how all of that kind of shakes out. Now, tonight, it's like we mentioned before, it's not too often where you get games in the regular season with, extreme importance or a must-see situation because the season's so long. Tonight's one of those nights. One of those nights. One of these nights. It's an Eagles song, my favorite. Luke is going back to Dallas for the first time since the most ridiculous trade in the history of the NBA. Luke is going to be there. Anthony Davis will be there. He might check out in the first quarter with an injury, but he will play. And Luka gets a chance to return home. Now, can you imagine for a moment how weird that is? Can you imagine being a Maverick fan just pissed off beyond belief that the stupid management decided to trade Luka, and now you've got to go and watch him play for the Lakers? My guess would be the Mavericks fans who love Luka, they want the Lakers to win tonight, and they want Luka to go wild because they want to stick it to Patrick Dumont and their dumb GM. That would be my guess. And the emotions are going to be high. And for Luka, it's got to be bizarre. Keep in mind, he didn't want or ask to be traded. He had just bought that incredible crib down there. He was expecting to sign the Supermax extension because any other team with a player like Luka would obviously lock him in for an extended period of time. That usually happens when you have one of the three best players in the entire world. Like, think about that. How many people are bumping on planet Earth right now? Like 6 billion? 6 billion plus people. And of all the people on the planet, Luka is in the top 3 of the 6 billion plus who can play basketball. That's it. And you trade him because you're moronic. Well, they did, and now Maverick fans are obviously frustrated for good reason. So it's going to be a weird night for them, but that is a game I've got to watch. So I'll be multitasking tonight during my Blazer duties and having the Mavericks game up on the screen. But that's going to be fun to watch. And then the postseason will get here. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. While the player movement has made the Western Conference wildly fascinating, I still believe that Oklahoma City is by far the best team. And I'm no longer doubting OKC. I'm not doubting them. They're too good. They've got the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he just continues to churn out the points and make big-time plays. They've got depth. They can switch at all positions. They can defend. They've got a good offense. There's nothing they don't do. And I guess the only reason why we doubt them is because they haven't done it before. But this is probably the year where they figure it out and get to the NBA Finals. I think the best threat to take them out is probably Golden State. And Golden State's not a perfect team either, but they're playing much better basketball right now. Much better basketball. And they got Steph Curry, who looks to be, I would say, rejuvenated after the addition of Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler knows how to play with big-time players. He's smart. He can rebound. He's a triple-double type guy. He can score. He can isolate. Whatever you need Jimmy Butler to do, he can do. And I think Steve Kerr, been around him quite a bit, and I like the way he works with guys, the way he communicates, the way he's able to get guys connected. Steve Kerr is a good coach, and he's wise at how to deal with players like that. So the West is going to be fascinating. And Luka being in L.A. is just crazy. It's crazy. But the Mavericks did it. And that's still by far, like Michael Malone being fired and setting the mark for being a championship coach fired with 3 games to go in the regular season. Like, that's pretty wild. But the Luka trade still takes the cake by far. But for Michael Malone, what we're going to do coming up at 3:20, the Godfather Dwight James will join us again. And I just want to get his take on a couple of things. One, his read on the situation in Denver. Why? Why'd they make the move? Is it because of the toxic environment in the front office between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth? The Cold War that was going on there? Is it because Michael Malone is a bit of an a-hole and his voice had lost its effectiveness in the locker room? The other thing to think about, too, is, obviously Nikola Jokic signed off on this. And don't tell me that there's no way he didn't know that was going to go down before it went down. Of course they told him. Just like I don't believe for a second that LeBron had no idea that AD was about to be traded. Oh, so you didn't tell LeBron? You didn't mention that to Clutch? Like, I'm not dumb, so don't pretend I'm dumb. Of course LeBron knew. And Jokic knew. And you know how it would have gone if Jokic is like, that's my coach, you can't get rid of him. Michael Malone would still be the coach. So obviously, Jokic was okay with the decision. So it's very interesting. And I know a lot of Blazer fans are wondering, well, should Portland go after Malone? Well, he's not taking the job in Portland. He's going to wait and find the best job with a team that's got a chance to go out and compete right away. I still like the idea that someone threw out there, like, I think it would be fun to watch Michael Malone. Whoever the Nuggets play in the playoffs, they should add him as like a consultant, and he can sit on the bench on like a 10-day contract
I'd pay to see that.
just to taunt the Kroenke family. So there you have it. So we got some good coaches available. Also, Chauncey Billups. I want to ask Dwight about Billups and his future. Is he back in Portland? Is he going to be in Phoenix? Or what about the Denver Nuggets? He is revered in Colorado. He is beloved in Colorado. And whether it's here in Portland or elsewhere, Chauncey Billups has done such a good job this year, especially over the second half of the season, with the wins, the turnaround, and the player development, that he's going to get another job. And one thing that Chauncey does very well is connect with his players. Everyone on the team respects him here in Portland. You think Chauncey could connect with a guy like Jokic? Yeah, I think so. But it's weird because this is what happens when you give big money to multiple players on your roster. And in their case, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, Jamal Murray, and then Michael Porter Jr. When you give away that type of cash, this is part of the problem with the current salary structure in the NBA. It makes it very difficult for you to have the resources to be able to add the players on your bench that you need. So you end up losing guys like KCP or Bruce Brown, or take your pick. And then what happens is you've got to draft well and develop the guys you draft. But the problem is, and I'm sure this is part of the rub between Booth and Malone, is that, Malone's like, wait a second, we are a championship level team, and that's the expectation. I don't have time to throw a bunch of youngsters in there and try to develop them on the fly when we need to win games. But we don't have the depth, so we got to play our starters. And Jamal Murray's been in and out of the lineup. It's a big mess. So it's really tough. And if you don't want to spend the tax dollars, which a lot of these owners don't, then you're going to be in a situation where you don't have the proper depth to be able to get the job done. So that's kind of what's going on. It's just one big giant mess in Denver. So we'll talk about that with Dwight. We'll get his take on Chauncey Billups. And then I want to touch on this story with Cody Bellinger. And I'll ask you the question, too. Have you ever been in a situation where you've sworn off food of some sort, a particular item, some type of food? Have you ever been like, I'm never eating that again? Well, we'll get into that coming up at 3:45 in regard to Cody Bellinger. All right, Rip City Drive, Chad Doing with you. Game day is coming up at 4 with Chris Burkhardt. The Godfather Dwight James is coming up next on the show. Hey, Godfather, I feel bad. I'm not sure I should talk over Kenny Loggins to bring you on. Maybe we should just let it play.
It's not a smart move, Chad. That's all I can tell you. It's not a smart move.
Like there are certain songs, and we opened up the show, and Brendan played "What a Fool Believes." I
Yes.
know a song is great when I can listen to it a billion times, and it still sounds like sweet honey to my ears.
Oh, you got to listen to it at least once a week, maybe sometimes once a day, you know?
All right, so many things to talk about with you. We had a big conversation a couple of days ago, and then all hell broke loose in the NBA. What was your initial reaction to Michael Malone being let go with 3 games to go in the regular season?
Well, Chad, shock, I guess, would be the best way of putting it. I was really surprised. Not only was there 3 games left in the season, but that they would let him go at all. I think he's one of the better coaches in the league, and he does have a championship trophy hanging around his neck. And in spite of his behavior at the championship parade, I still think he's a heck of a coach. And I know he's been having trouble with his players lately, and it could be that he's losing the locker room, but. Um, I think if the front office backs you in those situations, some of the players maybe have to go and maybe some of them stay, but you can fix that. And I feel bad that he got fired because I think it's a tough move, and I feel bad for David Adelman, who's now getting his first head coaching job under very trying circumstances, I believe.
Yeah, very trying circumstances. I'm not really sure how this works, but when you have a situation where you're paying 4 players a ton of money, obviously you're going to have to let certain guys go, like Brown and KCP, and you lose some of the quality depth, players who were critical to their championship run. But how does that work between a coach and a GM where Michael Malone, in his mind, he's like, hey, we're a championship level team, and that's what we're trying to pursue. And then you've got a GM who's drafted young players who wants them to have playing time to develop. That was clearly a rub between the two, but how does that play out when you have a championship level team, but yet at the same time you do need minutes for the young guys?
Well, Chad, I think it goes back to the draft itself. There has to be communication ahead of time about who you take and what that guy's role might be before you even draft him, because it's obvious that there was a real difference of opinion. I mean, Michael Malone's not going to play guys who he doesn't think can help him win. By the same token, he will play guys if he thinks they can help him win games. And I go back to the old quote, a very good coach told me in the NBA. It's like, hey, I'm not going to get young players playing time for the next coach, and it's like you're coaching that team. And, similar to what Chauncey did this year, really, he got the young players time. But when it got to winning games there at that certain point of the season, he was going with the guys that could help him win. And I don't blame him a bit. And I think all coaches are going to do that for the most part. And so, in this situation, I think I would have let the GM go because I don't think he's drafted well. And I would have consulted Michael Malone on who he'd like to be the new GM.
Hmm. I wonder too if Michael Malone being the way he is might rub people the wrong way. Like I could see him being like Bill Belichick, like walking past
Yeah.
Kroenke in a hallway and not even acknowledging him. But I wonder if maybe his intensity might have rubbed people the wrong way, where the owner's like, you know what, I really don't need this.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any question about that, Chad. And you know how prickly he is. He
Oh,
can get real. He can get real tender about things, and certain things bother him. And he's not afraid at all to criticize his players or the front office or anybody else. And that does rub people the wrong way. And my thoughts on that are, if you're winning games, and they are still winning games, especially given what they have on their roster, they have the best player in the league, but they don't have much else to help him. No other all-stars. He's never had an all-star, all-defensive player on his team in 10 years. So, you got to be happy with what you're doing, and you swallow your pride a little bit and put up with whatever the coach is giving you.
yeah, no doubt. I wonder too what their thought process is with Nikola Jokic, who's got a couple of years left on his contract. When it comes to a decision like this, clearly he signed off on it, because if Jokic would have said, no, you can't get rid of my guy, the only coach he's ever had in the NBA, they would have kept him. But do you think they're making moves with Jokic in mind or not at all?
I would tend to lean toward not at all, Chad. I think you could ask Jokic the question, should we let him go? And Jokic should probably say, look, I'm not the general manager. I'm not the owner. You guys do what you want. I'll show up on time and play the game.
Mm.
I think that's just the way he is. He seems very subservient to whoever his coach is and the front office. But you got to remember at a certain time, he's going to have the ability to leave you. He's going to have the ability to play out that contract and go somewhere else. So your next coach better be a good one, and he better be a guy who uses Jokic uh, perfectly. And that's one thing Malone always did. Man, he did a great job of playing their games through Jokic. I think that's part of the reason Jokic has looked so good over the last few years. There's a lot of coaches who wouldn't have done that with a 6'11" center, as good as Jokic is. It's not the style of play in vogue in the NBA right now. And Malone was smart enough. Hey, let's just go with this. It's working, and they won a title with it.
We're talking with the Godfather, Dwight James, here on the Rip City Drive. Now, I was told from a couple of people I know in Denver that, part of the reason why they make the move now is that they know they were going to make a move at the end of the year, and they wanted to give a little extra time for Coach Adelman to get a look at him. And so I believe that he's got more of an opportunity than just keeping the seat warm for the next coach. Like, I think he's got a legit chance to land this job, depending on how he performs the rest of the way and into the playoffs. But you know more about him as a coach, and you covered his father for an extended period of time. What can you tell me about David Adelman and what he brings to the table?
Well, Chad, he's really smart, especially offensively. He has learned from his father. Rick was a terrific offensive coach and a good enough defensive coach. And I think David has had an opportunity to move around a little bit, learn from some really good coaches, and really he's ready for this job. And I do think he has a legit chance of keeping it at least for next year. I don't know what they're going to do because, obviously they just made a move that nobody could believe. So, how do you predict what they'll do next? But I think he's good enough to be their head coach. And if he doesn't get the job, somebody else will hire him. Now, as far as, I don't even think it's fair to judge him on what happens now in the last 2 or 3 games of the regular season and then whatever happens in the playoffs, because this is really an unsettling move for the team and doesn't give him a chance to really make any changes. I mean, he's got to go right into the playoffs. He can't make major changes without, with his team and the way it plays. It's not like getting a job over the summer and having time with your assistants to cook up something new and having a whole training camp with your players. It's going to be really difficult for him to change things.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm excited for the opportunity for him and seeing what he can do with this. But haven't you told me that, you've had conversations with Rick where, the reports he's gotten back from Denver is that Jokic is a pleasure to coach?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody says that, and I know he gets along with them real well. In fact, everybody does, and I think that part of the job is going to be easy for him. And he has a really good temperament. He has a lot of his father in him. He doesn't go real crazy on the sidelines. He has a really good handle on how to handle players. He doesn't call them out publicly. I would think it's going to be a real difference in his temperament, and maybe his players will relax a little more and hopefully not take advantage of his good, even temperament and play hard for him, because that's what they really need to do. Play hard, see what happens. You win or you lose, but at least you go down with guns blazing and you've done your best.
Yeah, that makes sense. The more I look at the Western Conference, like I love the player movement and the excitement it's going to bring in the early rounds in the postseason, but I think we might be overthinking this a little bit. Oklahoma City, they're clearly the best team by far in the conference, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing a little up and down from them at this point of the season. I think it's really hard for a team that's dominated like this not to have some ups and downs. You've seen the Celtics all year kind of lose some games. You can't believe that they lost. And, it's just at a certain point, the regular season stops meaning anything when you've got everything wrapped up the way you want, or you got a ring on your finger already. Hey, I just thought of something, Chad, that I wanted to say about David Adelman. I think he's come a long way from those days when the parents at Lincoln High School didn't really think he was good enough to coach their kids. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think maybe so. It's like, He's not good enough to coach the kids at Lincoln, but he's okay for Jokic and Jamal Murray.
Yeah, he can handle the best player in the world right now. But as far as your 5'4" point guard who's on the bench, maybe not so much. You better find somebody else.
Further proof that any parent involved in any youth sports league offering up their opinion, it doesn't mean jack. It's like, it's crazy. The parents are crazy. Can you imagine dealing with the parents in today's world where they think they know everything?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, Godfather.
It's a little bit tough.
Oh, man. Hey, what do you think that's going to be like for Luka tonight going back to Dallas for the first time?
Uh, he's the kind of guy, I think, with his temperament. He'll have fun with it. He'll kind of, I don't think anything much bothers him except referees. That's the only thing that seems to bother him. And he gets real pissed off
They
at them.
really
But
bother him, too.
yeah, they do. Yeah, to a fault. But I think it'll be fine. I think he'll probably play pretty well too. Who knows though? And he's having to carry LeBron around now too. He's kind of going to be an anchor for him in the playoffs, I think. But we'll see how it works out. It's really hard to have two alphas on your team, and Luka has to be the alpha. He's the better player of the two, but we'll see how that works out.
All right, I want to ask you about Chauncey Billups. What's your read on the situation with Chauncey? And I guess my question for you is, do you think that with the work he's done this year that he's got a chance to be back in Portland?
Oh, I think he has a real chance. I do. I think the chance to get him at his current contract would be appealing to the Trailblazer brass. And I think they like what he's done with his team and the development of the players. All of a sudden, I think they might be a little worried about how are the players going to react, because they kind of like Chauncey. And, then who do you get to replace him? Who do you hire to come in here and handle a young developing team? So all those problems are ahead if they decide to make a change. I think they do probably want to bring him back. The question is, Chauncey's in a pretty good spot. I doubt if he'd come back just for one option year on his contract. He might just say, hey, find somebody else. I don't think you guys wanted me last summer when you wouldn't pick up that option. So why should I come back now? If you want to give me 3 or 4 more years, maybe I'll come back. But I think he's probably got other teams interested in him as well as he's done here this season. I know that's going to break the hearts of all those Fire Chauncey fans out there, but it's very possible. I would say 50-50 on him coming back again next year with a longer term deal.
Interesting. Yeah, it would be. Well, let me ask you a question. If the Blazers wanted to just pick up his option and bring him back for another, I guess, quote, lame duck year, how do you think his agent would respond to that?
His agent would laugh. It's
just like, we're not doing that, right? He'd just be like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, and really, people are going to say, hey, he's got a contract. He's got to come back. Well, yeah, legally, I guess he does. But do you want to bring a guy back who doesn't want to come back? That's not a prescription for success. And so I don't think you do that. I've never seen it done, really. When somebody says, I want out, a coach says, that's it, I got other things. And you wish him luck and send him on his way and find somebody else. That's probably what they'd have to do. And boy, when it comes to that, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know if you go out and get a young coach or if you look at one of the guys who's just been fired, but would a Michael Malone come to Portland even with what they have? I think that the play would be for the Blazers and for Chauncey to wait and see what happens in the draft, in the lottery. If they pull a ping pong ball out that is 4 or less, 4, 3, 2, 1, he'd want to come back and they'd probably want him back. But even if they didn't want him back, they could probably hire a veteran coach. If they don't get one of those lucky ping pong balls, yeah, then hiring a coach and getting a coach to come here is a little more difficult.
All right, final question for you, because you know a lot of people around the league. For the people you've spoken to, are they impressed with the development of Coach Billups, especially with what he's done here in year 4?
There's no question, Chad. And the people in the league understand what's going on. Fans often don't. Fans aren't holding these tank seasons against Chauncey. They're not. They're not holding that against him. They knew what his situation was.
They hold
They're
that against
realists.
the team, yeah.
Yeah, they know what was going on, just like you and I know. We've been saying it all along. This isn't something that we just stumbled on in the last 2 weeks. We've been saying it through the whole tenure. He's had his hands tied behind his back, and now he doesn't. So they're liking what they see, not only in the way this team's won games, but the way the young players have developed, and that's important for a lot of teams in the league right now. A team like, well, Sacramento, they got some young guys they want to bring along, and I don't know, maybe even Memphis, who knows where he might go, but I think there's teams that would definitely interview him and think about hiring him.
All right, one side note. Major League Baseball allowing the A's to play in a AAA ballpark is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment, Godfather.
It certainly is. And it's really, it's like they didn't even want to put Sacramento on the uniforms. They just want to call them the A's. So it's like, we don't want Sacramento to be a part of this. Well, the way it's working out, Sacramento doesn't seem to want to be a part of it either because they're not showing up. Can you imagine big league teams playing a season or 3 seasons in Portland and not drawing crowds? God, they'd be packed if they had the old Multnomah Stadium, Civic Stadium, Providence Park baseball field back. That sucker would have 20,000 every night if they were playing. Can you imagine the Yankees coming to town?
Oh, gosh, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, hell, we might as well go down there and catch a series because we could get cheap tickets up close. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, a friend of mine was down for the opener, and he said, it's a nice enough ballpark, but watching big league baseball in a ballpark like that, it's just, it's just not right. And they got those portable buildings set up for the media scrums after the game, and it's really a bush league operation.
It's pathetic. It's and not only that, but it's in Sacramento, which is. Well, it's an armpit of California, to be quite frank.
Yeah. Come on, Chad. It's the capital of California.
Yeah. Well,
which probably makes things worse.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It does. And just like Salem is, right? Salem's the capital of Oregon. And not my favorite city in the state. I can tell you that much. Oh, goodness. Well, Godfather, I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for coming on to try and make sense of all the craziness going on. It's wild times.
All right. Talk to you soon, Chad.
There you go. There's the Godfather. Yeah, the A's being in a AAA ballpark. That's a comedy show. All right, coming up next, what food have you sworn off? You know me, black bean soup. Ain't doing it, won't do it. 1994 was the last experience I had with that, and I'm never doing it again. And now Cody Bellinger's in a similar position. You're going to find out next. And then Chris Burkhart's got Blazers Game Day coming up at the top of the hour. I'll have the Trailblazer pregame show at 5 o'clock. You got the Rip City Drive.
just a
How'd you feel about that one?
Oh, I loved it, man. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Just a great team win, you know. Just a great team win. I thought the whole way, you know, our guys, our role players, they never kind of stepped outside of themselves. They just kept playing the same way, even though, you know, most of our playmakers weren't playing in the game. They just kept playing right, man. Just kept playing right, kept playing right. Thought defensively we did a really good job. Really, really happy for Chris Murray, man. You know, get 18 points in the second half, that was a big deal, you know, and he got them all over the place. So that one made me feel good for him, for sure.
Chauncey, Roops has been kind of stuck in that in-between spot early in the season when you guys could have sent him down to the remix. You basically are a rolled ankle away from him having to be available. Where have you seen him kind of develop when he's been kind of stuck in between this year?
Yeah, it's been an up and down kind of tough year for Roops. With us being so healthy this year, obviously there wasn't room for him. So he went down a few times and played. I do continue to see him getting better, but he didn't make a huge jump this year because he just didn't have a chance to, you know. So, but he still remains, like I always say, one of the hardest worker. Nobody works harder and puts more time in than Roops does on our team, and he'll continue to do that and be that way. I've been proud of his progress, but his opportunity just hadn't been there this year. We've just been too healthy.